You're listening to Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions on product and business strategy. And now, here's your host, Bob Caporelli.
Welcome to another episode of Dear Strategy, where we answer all of your questions about product and business strategy. Real questions from real people in real companies just like yours. Welcome back, strategy creators, to another episode. This is the last part of our 5-part series on understanding your target market, or in the case of podcasters, who I designed this for, understanding your target audience. This goes back to a speech that I did at the PodFest Multimedia Expo back in the beginning of March. And I said that I would dedicate the entire month of April to this subject in more depth, rather than just handing out, a presentation, a copy of the presentation, which is what most people do. And well, this is a podcast conference, so let me go ahead and cover this material on the podcast, and maybe more than just podcasters can learn from it. So that's what this is about. Again, if you're not a podcaster, don't worry. This subject is not just for podcasting. It's absolutely appropriate for everyone. In fact, the reason I did this speech at the podcast conference is because I wanted to take what I teach to larger companies and medium-sized companies and apply it to the podcast space. In fact, anybody who has a business or a product or anything they're trying to get in front of an audience, you have to seek to find out more about that audience. What do they care about? Who are they? And if you're not targeting that audience, you're just doing yourself a disservice, and you're wasting a lot of time and money and resources. So that's what this whole series is about. To catch you up, we are now on episode 85, which is part 5 of 5 in this 5-part series. So if you want to go back to the first parts of this, check out episodes 81 through 84. You could do that by visiting dearstrategy.net, or you can also read the blog that goes along with each of the episodes. I do a blog for each episode, not show notes, but a full article for each one. And you can find that at dearstrategy.net/blog, or by clicking on the blog link. So that should catch you up. So last week we talked about this concept of customer personas, which in our process translates into segment personas. You can go back and check out that episode if you want to learn more about that. But essentially what we have established so far is that you start with this overall big market. You narrow down your market using TAM, SAM, and SOM to get from your total addressable market to your serviceable addressable market to ultimately your serviceable obtainable market, or the people that are going to consume your product or listen to your show. And to move from your SAM to your SOM, which is about acquiring customers, you need to have some tools to understand the true needs of your customers. What do they care about, right? What's troubling them? So you can develop products and services to be able to address those needs. And personas is one of the tools that's commonly used for that purpose. Well, this week I want to introduce you to one more tool that's used for that purpose. And it's one that I actually created. It's called a market team card. Now, I wrote about this in the book that I wrote, Creative Strategy Generation, that was released back in 2015. I still use that material as a baseline for a lot of the workshops that I teach and so forth. And in that book, I introduced this concept of a market team card. The reason that I introduced this concept, by the way, is I used personas for many years and I like them. I think they're a great concept, but I think that they can be very, very granular. In other words, if you try and take a segment and you try and represent that segment with one single person, I think you're missing out on a lot of what that segment might actually stand for. And so what I typically do to get around that, and I talked about this last week, is create multiple personas per segment. But I thought there might be a better way even. So I started using this concept of what I call market team cards in my trainings, and it really seemed to work well. And I started using it more and more. And now it's pretty socialized out there. So what this is taking a segment, however you've grouped your markets, take your segment and create what I call a team card, which really outlines what they care about. And there's 3 layers to this market team card. The first layer is outlining their drivers, right? So what do they care about at a very, very high level? What do they stand for? The second layer is outlining their issues. So this really represents their pain points, right? What's troubling them, or what do they want to find out more about? So in the case of a podcast, maybe this represents the information they want, what they want to learn more about, right? So that type of thing. What are their issues? And then that translates into the third layer, which is the needs, right? So from the issues, what do they actually need to help them solve their problem? So if they have a certain problem, what kind of solution could they possibly be looking for? Now, it's important that you don't lay out the exact solution here. although I guess you could, but it's really more generally, what are they looking for so that you could develop a product or service or solution around that. Okay. By the way this name evolved, this market team card thing, I was a big collector of sports cards when I was a kid, mostly baseball cards, but then I extended it into hockey cards, which is the sport that I love, and other cards as well. My father-in-law was also a big baseball card kind of fanatic, and he actually had a store. When he passed several years ago, he passed those down to me. So I have all his, cards and memorabilia and everything else. It meant a lot to me. So this idea of a market team card, one of the things that I always coveted in my collection was the team card. For some reason, I just loved it. Like, the individual players were cool, but I really loved the team cards. Like, I loved the grouping of those players and then seeing the stats. In some cases, there was a checklist, there was different variations on this concept. But it kind of represented to me like this grouping of people who are all rallied around a specific cause, right? In this case, it was their team. But I really thought that was a powerful message. And I think of markets the same way, by the way, right? I don't like to think of markets as, markets, segments from the standpoint of a company, because that's all about me, right? What I really think about is, how do the customers see themselves? And they really see themselves as part of a tribe almost, right? It's part of their group. So if you're a Met fan, by the way, like, you are grouping yourself with other similar Met fans. It's kind of like your tribe. That's your team. And that's the way I think markets see it. They don't see themselves as part of a segment. They see themselves as part of a team of other people that have similar needs or desires or passions that they do. That's where this name comes from. So this idea of a market team card is, looking at it through the eyes of your customers. In any event, what it is just a one-page template. And on this template, it gives you a place to put a logo or a picture or something that represents that team for you, right? That segment for you. Then it gives you a place to talk about who are they and where are they, because those are important elements. And then you get into the lower levels, right? Like, what are their drivers? What are their issues? What are their needs? So again, what do they care about? What are their pain points? And what will ultimately solve their problems? So last week, I told you that I had 4 segments that I identified for this podcast, which were essentially product managers, business leaders, strategy consultants, and business students. And so for the product manager segment, last week, I introduced you to 2 personas that I use for them. But the market team card isn't at the persona level. It's broad, right? It's like, what are the drivers, issues, and needs for the entire segment? And just to give you an idea of some of the things that are on there, right? For my team card for product managers, I listed, what do they care about? Well, they're interested in career advancement for the purpose of being afforded financial freedom in their personal lives, right? That's kind of what I've found product managers care mostly about. They want to have enough personal, family, and hobby time. Those are all key drivers for them. Members of that segment want to work for companies that they're passionate about, that they believe in, that they care about. And they're not afraid to move from company to company if those companies don't meet that criteria, right? So that's kind of the big stuff. That's not talking anything about what they need from a podcast. It's not even talking about what pains them. It's really just talking about what they stand for. And you could list more things. Those are some of the highlights. Then you get down into their pain points. These are the issues that they have on a day-to-day basis. So career advancement, they find it to be difficult while trying to balance healthy and happy personal lives. Like, their companies want them to put in lots and lots of time, and they feel a little stuck, right? Like, how do they balance that with their personal lives? So that's a problem that they have that they want solved. They're confused about exactly how to do their jobs. There's no degree in product management. There wasn't at one point. So a lot of product managers never had formal education. So what does a product manager actually do? They're confused about that. There doesn't seem to be enough time to do their jobs. Product manager seems to be a dumping ground of sorts for a lot of different activities. And so they don't know, which ones to get to, and there's always too much work to do. So sometimes that makes them feel stuck. There's no hope to advance or succeed in their jobs because there's always too much to do. And then they feel like their bosses don't even understand what they do. Their bosses may expect something out of them that they're not really either capable of or that doesn't fit into their job. And sometimes they feel like their bosses aren't qualified to lead them, right? So these are real pain points now we're talking about. Now we're talking about things that product managers deal with on a day-to-day basis that are problems for them. So what do they need to help solve their problem? Well, they need further education on basic business skills, right? But they need that delivered without judgment or bias because they're probably expected to know more stuff than they actually do know. And they want to almost find out that information in a way that's I don't want to say completely secretive, but maybe on their own time, right? Without having to admit that maybe I don't know something. They want a roadmap for greater job success and ultimately further career advancement. They want that formula for finding happiness in their jobs, finding this balance between their work and their life. And they want some way to deal with some of the difficult bosses that they have and with all the red tape of a corporate environment that might not understand what they do. It gets a little deeper than that, but that's essentially the main things. Now, a lot of you that listen to the show, you're product managers. By the way, I'd love to hear some feedback, right? Do you think this fits you? Do you think I've got this right? Do you think not? Because it's the other thing with a market team card is it's constantly evolving, right? It doesn't have to just stay where it is right now. It's constantly, changing based on what you learn. And that's the key. Now, what I do with this is I have one of these team cards for each of the 4 segments that I target for my show. And when I was developing products and in my corporate career, I would have a similar type of a thing for the markets that I wanted to target for my products. And this allows me to always keep the customer front and center. So whenever I'm making decisions on development or, features or things like that, I have a living, breathing document that tells me what the customers care about. And it's dynamic and it changes, but I always have them in front of me. So this helps me to avoid this very natural inclination that we have toward, putting things out there that we care about and that customers really don't, right? And so by having these team cards always in front of you, you're always going to have the customer view represented. And that to me is worth its weight in gold. So that's how I use this. That's what this product is. And again, it serves a very similar purpose to personas in that you're trying to convert more of your SAM into your SOM by understanding needs and addressing those needs. This will allow you to grow your market share, but this just does it on a little broader level. To be very honest, I use both of those tools, personas and market team cards. And I think in combination, really, really powerful stuff. So we can go on forever about this, but I think it's better to show you. So what I'm going to ask you to do, if you've made it this far in the podcast, and I hope you have, because I have a special treat for you, if you go visit us at dearstrategy.net/blog and you click on the article for episode 85, which is this episode, read that article. And at the end of that article, I will have a link where you can actually download your own market team card for free. Okay. Giving that away for free. I'd love it if you sign up for our mailing list, of course. And that'll take you to a link that you can do that. But, we're going to give that to you. So you'll have it. It's a fillable PDF and you can use this, create as many as you want for the products, services, company, podcasts that you have. And I think you'll find it a really, really useful tool. There's no right or wrong. It's not this, heavy academic tool. It's really just a way of understanding the needs of your audience or your market and really keeping those needs in mind when you're developing your product. So that's it. That's the conclusion of our 5-part episode. If you haven't listened to all of the episodes, please go back and do that. It's episodes 81 through this current episode 85. And of course, go out to the dearstrategy.net site and you'll be able to see the articles and blogs that go along with each one of them. I hope you found it helpful. If you have, please click on the contact link on the Dear Strategy website, dearstrategy.net. Actually, it's listed as Ask a Question, but it allows you to contact the show as well. And I hope you'll go ahead and do that and tell us what you thought. Tell us if this was useful. And of course, if there's anything else that we can help you with, please go visit the website of the company that I own and founded and sponsors this show, Strategy Generation Company. You can find us at strategygeneration.com and you'll find the workshops we deliver, tools, resources, and all kinds of great things to help you in your strategy journey. So while you're doing all that, don't forget to make time for the plan and don't forget to join us back here for episode 86, which will be next week. And we're going to go back to our regular format of answering user questions. So if you have a question to be submitted for the show, please do that through our website. But we have plenty of questions in the backlog, so we'll look forward to getting back to those. Thank you for joining. We'll see you back here next week on another episode of Dear Strategy. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Dear Strategy with Bob Caparelli. To learn more or to submit a question to be featured on our show, please visit us at dearstrategy.net.